Man, I got a lot of videos on my channel, don't I? Videos. How many do I have? Like 242 videos. Wow. 242. We got Jack Hibbs totally confusing Charlie Kirk about the rapture. Fundamental false synergistic presupposition. Yep, faith comes from us conjuring it up out of the cauldron of our own power of contrary choice. That's their false definition of human libertarian free will that all synergists are working with. A false definition of human free will. Leighton Flowers doesn't know what establishes human culpability. It is law. Law, commands, imperatives. That is what establishes responsibility, accountability, culpability, liability, blame, and fault. Without law, there's no blame for anything. Without law, there is no sin, since sin is the lack of conformity unto the law or transgression of the law. Without law, there is no culpability, responsibility, accountability, liability, blame, or fault. The prophet Daniel had tremendous anxiety over the Antichrist. He did. His spirit was alarmed. He was anxious about all this stuff regarding the Antichrist in Daniel chapter 7. The little horn is the Antichrist in Daniel 7. Jeff Durbin's false preterism. Yes, the Antichrist is alive today. Contra preterism and futurism's errors. Jeff Durbin says, nope, the Antichrist was Nero. We don't need to worry about the Antichrist anymore. Preterists, right? Twitchy Theologian and Tim Bouchon scoff and mock the Reformation and historicism, since the Reformation was historicist, not preterist and not futuristic. And they're arrogant about it, too. They're arrogant about it. There's nothing more frustrating than ignorance coupled with arrogance. Ignorance can be remedied simply by learning more stuff. Arrogance, it's so hard to remedy arrogance. Pastor Matthew recognizes historicism of Jonathan Edwards. He goes to, in my opinion, the wrong place in Edwards to look for his historicism, but Edwards was most certainly an historicist. When Jay from Jay and Silent Bob corrects Joel Webben. It's a funny little short I made. John Harris, Christian nationalists say public policy should suppress blatant idolatry. How about all Roman Catholic churches then? And Eastern Orthodox churches. Blatant idolatry, but John Harris won't talk about that. Cowards that they are. These people are cowards. These Christian nationalists are cowards. These are not people who are standing up for truth. These are people who want to go whining and crying to the government to please fix all this idolatry, please enforce the first table of the Decalogue. It's just absolutely frustrating, angering. And yes, I do have anger. I try to keep that under control, but it's real hard to do with these guys who fall into the high partial preterist / post-millennialist nonsense. Then you got a futurist right here who's a Roman Catholic, a papist. Not even a Roman Catholic, a papist, a Roman papist. Taylor Marshall is a futurist. He's a futurist. Not much different than the dispensational futurist eschatological system, though there are differences. But he's a futurist. He espouses futurism, just like Dr. Michael Vlach and the Master's Seminary. And John MacArthur promulgated this nonsense for over 50 years. John MacArthur, false accusation of latent anti-Semitism if you're not a dispensational futurist. Again, everybody's racist, everybody's bigot and a xenophobe, right? It's just like everybody, we just call people names. That's what we do, I guess, apparently, which is ridiculous. It's ad hominem. That's a logical fallacy. Logic is the way God thinks. Logical fallacies are how Satan argues. Christian nationalists can't figure out the Sabbath. That's, of course, 69% of papists, Roman Catholics, do not believe in transubstantiation. Amen. Amen. From Michael Knowles. Recognizes that. And he says, oh, hey, you have to believe this because the Eucharist, the bread and the wine at the Lord's Supper, which they falsely call the Eucharist, is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. The bread and the wine, that's the literal body, literal blood, literal soul, and literal divinity of Jesus that you are consuming at the Lord's Supper, or they falsely call it the Eucharist. That's what they believe. Superstitious, Nonsense. When Jesus instituted the Lord's Supper, he was being prophetic. He was prophesying about his own crucifixion and saying later, Paul would say, do this in remembrance of me. Jesus would say that. Paul would bring to remembrance. We do this as a remembrance of Christ and his sacrifice. It's a remembrance. It's an anamnesis, a remembrance. That's what it is. That's all it is. Okay? J.D. Hall lies about Brother James White. Shame on Right Response for playing that, because there's all kinds of brother wars now in the post-millennial world, and you guys are all just simply duped by your post-millennialism. So, Kirk Cameron, let's see the...
What's dispensational premillennialism? Left Behind, which Kirk Cameron, by the way, he's post-mill. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, for years he was the actor in Left Behind, and he's post-mill, man. And he
Boo. So he traded in one error, falsehoods, and lies for another group of errors, falsehoods, and lies.
And he lives like it. He's going.
I used to sit down at the pool in the summertime reading the Left Behind series, and I would close the book and just wish myself into rapture, like just now. That and
okay, so again, they've traded the errors, falsehoods, and lies of the dispensational futurist eschatological system for the equally erroneous, fallacious, lying, false teaching of high partial preterism and coupled with post-millennialism. Some of them couple it with amillennialism. They're the same problems with post-millennialism and amillennialism. So all kinds of confusion going on regarding Bible prophecy. And I think let's see here.
If you think I'm exaggerating, just ask my wife.
Nikolai Carpathia, watching the movies, the Kirk Cameron movies, the Left Behind series.
Every time it's like, I don't know if we're going to be here in the morning, babe. I hope you make it, right? And I do want to say, I was messaging Kirk Cameron recently. We were talking, and I think it's an amazing thing of God's providence that the poster boy for the worst eschatological system in the history of Christianity is now post-mill. So take that.
Oh, pot, meat, kettle, meat, pot. The worst. What do you say? The poster boy for the worst? Whoa.
It's an amazing thing of God's providence that the poster boy for the worst eschatological system in the history of Christianity.
The worst eschatological system in the history of Christianity. I can say the same thing about your high partial preterism coupled with postmillennialism too, Jeff. Yours is the second worst. I say dispensational futurism is the worst just because it's the most popular in otherwise Bible-believing churches and amongst Bible-believing Christians, which is really sad. Super sad. It's nothing more than the futurism of Francisco Ribera, just with a couple little tweaks in there with the dispensational futurist system. Francisco Ribera, Spanish Jesuit theologian tasked with overthrowing the Reformation, is what the Jesuits were created for. That's futurism. But Jeff goes with the preterism of Luis del Alcázar. Luis del Alcazar, another Spanish Jesuit theologian who was published and first systematized what would be called the Preterist view of Bible prophecy. Although he brought the prophecies out to about the early part of the 5th century A.D., at around the fall of the Roman Empire, before the bishops of Rome, before the popes ever ruled from Rome. So that's Preterism. Jeff's is a much more radical type of Kenneth L. Gentry's Preterism that Jeff holds to and drinks the Kool-Aid of Kenneth L. Gentry's before Jerusalem fell nonsensical theories, is a more radical type of Preterism than Luis del Alcazar's even was. So it's amazing to me to witness all this. You know, it's as if church history has not spoken. Just ridiculous. Reading through the book of Revelation, we see the historical events laying out. Go back to Daniel chapter 7. Lays it all out for us. Everything in Revelation can be chucked into Daniel chapter 7 and fits in there perfectly. But that's historicism, and that's Jonathan Edwards, historicist, John Gill, historicist, Matthew Henry, historicist, John Napier, the first wrote the first serious Scottish work on Bible prophecy. John Napier, also the inventor of logarithms, not a stupid guy. Sir Isaac Newton was real into Bible prophecy. He was an historicist. They were all historicists of the Reformation. These people are abandoning the Reformation with their Jesuit-concocted Preterism and Jesuit-concocted Futurism, just with their own little elements added to it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Preterism, Futurism, both dangerous false teachings and doctrine. Soli Deo Gloria.